This is the Londoner on RTE 2XM, and today I am absolutely delighted and thrilled to be catching up with Richie Jape. Hello, Mr. Richie Egan. How are you?
Hello there. Thanks very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here talking to you. I think we spoke many years ago together, but here
Yeah,
we
I
are.
was trying to figure out. It's probably about 2010 or 2011.
Okay. What was that, about 2 years ago or something?
Yeah, something like that. Something like that. Something like
Yeah.
that. You've a new single out right now, Lashing Through the Minutes, and you've a new album coming out as well. Um, Tell us a little bit about this album because there's a completely different vibe to your last album, Sentinel.
Yeah. I mean, albums tend to just be sort of a reflection of where you are creatively and personally at the time, and this one I was in a different headspace making this than I was the last one. And like even just like in terms of making records, I like to set parameters, like maybe production parameters or gear parameters that I work within. So they kind of usually sound different to each other, but make sense within themselves. So
It This album is I've been listening to it all day and it is a really nice package. And I have to say
oh,
it runs
well,
beautifully. I like albums that are packages.
yeah. Oh, you know what? Like I'm an old. I'm exactly the same. Like I think like it's like even thinking of a single to put out from the record. It's like, oh man, obviously you got to do it, but like I like to spend a lot of time working on the flow of a group of things where there's a dynamic flow which goes up and down, hopefully at the right time if you get it right. And yeah, I mean albums, like it kind of goes against what you're told nowadays a lot about how what people want, but like for me I've never lost that. And I hope that this has that album thing where you can go from the start and go to the end of the record and it makes sense that way.
Do you think
So it's great that you say it. I'm glad you say that. That makes me very happy.
do you think that the album form is a different type of music? And is that going to appeal to a different type of music fan, do you think?
I think like I don't think you should underestimate, say for example, young people's ability to focus for the length of an album. For example, I think it makes sense maybe commercially for people to just focus on very short snippets of songs like TikTok stuff and all. But like there are kids who like to read long novels. It's like, but it seems to be this generalization that like old people like to listen to albums and young people only like 20-second versions of choruses, and maybe there's some truth in it in some way, but I think as well as an actual art form, like the way a novel is, I think an album is still valid, and I think it'll be valid for generations to come. In maybe the circle of people who can even afford to make albums is probably going to get, like, I don't know, lower or whatever. But yeah, I think it's a good art form, and there's place for everything in the world, I think. And yeah, like you say, I love albums, and so do you. So there are others as well. We're not alone.
This record that you have coming out, it's coming out at the end of September, Endless Thread. Um, it blends beautifully together. I have a couple of tracks here. What a day. I love
Oh, yeah.
that.
Do you like that one?
I really
Yeah,
like that.
I'm
And
glad. Like, yeah, it's hard to hear them. You know what I mean? It's you've listened to, like, I tend to, because I work alone. Basically, I spend so much time writing them, and sometimes when they come out, I'm just like, I have no idea if that's good or bad anymore. I just like it's just done. Basically, it's like it's here's your food, eat your food. I don't know if it tastes good or not, but eat it.
well, I think the production on that and it it's not it kind of encompasses everything that you can feel what a day. It was a really special day. And
Oh,
it's
lovely.
like, that's what music is about, I think. And that's what the storytelling comes across in it as well. But when you're kind of changing the way you approach different things, how do you try and maintain that jape element within all these little different parameters that you set yourself?
I think it's important to maintain a level of playfulness with the song, and it's important to be willing to scrap it if it starts going in a bad direction. Because I think when you're writing songs, for me anyway, there's a few days, like 2 or 3 days, when it's really exciting song and you're really excited about it. You think it's great, but oftentimes you're not able to completely finish the song within those 3 days. And then after those, say 3 days, just this arbitrary number there, but 3 days roughly, right? Then you start questioning it. You start going like, is this good? Was I deluded? Is it bad? So you start over, and a lot of times you overthink it then, and you end up ruining stuff like because you take what was the spark of it, and you basically just like fix it, you know. And sometimes fixing, like it's like we spoke about AI, you know, it's like sometimes perfection is bad, you know, imperfection, the correct amount of it can be very emotionally engaging, you know. So it's just trying to keep an eye on that, keeping a level on that, but also at the same time working as a sort of a crafts person where you're trying to craft it, you're trying to make it better basically without making it worse, if that makes sense, you know.
And but then when before we came on air, we just briefly spoke about AI because I was having a play around with AI and having loads of fun with AI and making videos and trying to do stuff with it. But the thing with AI is that you can go online now and you can go in and you can get like a beat, or you can get like a beat and a drum for, you know, backgrounds and videos and all these kind of things. The one thing automatically that strikes me as someone who loves music is there is absolutely no soul in it. I mean, even something like I love synth wave, you know, that 80s kind of vibe
Yeah.
and all that kind of stuff as well. And even that will have like some sort of level of something in it in there. Um, this is so, do you know what? It's like it's over quantized. If people don't know what quantize is, if you're not a musician or whatever, if you don't use that stuff, it's when like a computer will move a beat to be on the beat. So it's not like a live drummer, but it's almost like it overdoes all that. So it takes all it saps all the energy out of it almost.
Yeah, for sure. It's like if you were doing a crossword, like you could just Google the answers, you know, and you just get the answers straight away, and your crossword would be done. But like if you actually spend your time to really rack your brain and come up with the answers to that crossword, the satisfaction you have when you've completed that crossword, even though the answers are the same, is like it's a beautiful thing, you know, that level of satisfaction. So for an artist, I think to use AI, you're kind of cheating yourself of that sense of real reward you get when you have a song, or it can be any a painting, whatever, where you encounter problems with it, and you have to overcome those problems, and you have to use your noggin basically to kind of come up with inventive ways to do it. And maybe it's flawed, maybe it's like nowhere near as good as an AI could do it in 10 seconds. But like for me, that's kind of like that's what being an artist is all about. You know, it's trying to express yourself, and finding problems is part of the joy of expressing yourself, you know, and solving them too easily, you're missing out on all that level of like, I'm sure there's some dopamine, serotonin thing going on as well. But like, yeah, so you can use AI. I mean, I think it obviously has its place. It's going to take over the world in many ways, but like, just you know, like treat yourself and do something hard every now and again. You know.
What's the toughest thing you've done in the past year? May I ask you?
Well, I don't know. I have three kids, so I mean, there's about 50 answers to it. Like, I mean, I don't know. Like, I think in order to get older without getting bitter, you have to try to enjoy stuff that's hard because you're going to be dead in like
Yeah.
whatever amount of time, you know? So, like, if it's how you look at it, you know, something might seem hard, but like if you just actually go, it's not that hard. A perfect example is a child crying, you know? So, when we had our first kid, the child crying was like, oh Jesus Christ, the kid is crying. How are we gonna fix it? You know. And now the number three kid, when the child cries, I just think to myself, that's the most beautiful sound. Like it's so beautiful that he is looking for.
Fantastic they can do it.
Do you know what I mean? It's amazing, like to kind of see whatever problem seems hard. It's if you see it in a different way, it's not hard, you know. And nowadays, some stuff can be hard, you know. But you just kind of have to. It's going to be hard anyway. So how you face it, like that Viktor Frankl book, you know, Man's Search for Meaning, that one where he basically was in a concentration camp and he was doing work in the field and he saw a sunset. And even though he hadn't seen his wife, probably dead now and stuff, he saw this sunset and he had an immense sense of joy from the sunset, even though he's in a concentration camp. I mean, that's the complication of joy and of like difficulty in life. It's like you, it's not as black and white as it's made out to be, you know?
That way of thinking definitely comes through to the album
Well,
because you're grabbing the little bits. I think it's a really good mindset and it's really positive mindset to have. And listening to the album, I found there's like pockets of positivity in there.
mm,
And hanging on to these things. It's like looking around us and finding the joy in everything that we see.
Yeah, it's. I mean, yeah. Like I think for me anyway, because I'm like 46 now, so it took me a long, long time to get to that point. I had to kind of go through a lot of darkness to understand the simpleness of how to just not go there. And I think it's a very kind of personal thing, and like it's it was important for me to have some joy in this record because I think it was kind of hard won, and I feel like if I could bring some of that to someone's listening experience, that's kind of where I'm at the minute, and that would be great if it came across. But I suppose one thing I wrestled with was nobody likes happy people. Like, really, like people prefer, especially with music, people prefer suffering, and you got to be careful not to be preachy as well. You can't be you just kind of have to tell your story, and if it resonates with somebody, then that's cool. And you know, yeah,
I think I agree with you where it takes a long time to find the happy kind of medium of where you are. And I think for me here, because I've been living in London now, you're in Sweden for about
yeah.
what, 12 years
We're
or
in about 11 or 12 years now. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So I'm actually in London 10 years this week.
Oh
And
wow.
I think there's yes, I do in my if you're watching on YouTube, I do have my Irish rugby ball, and that's just coincidental. It's a little stress ball to keep my hands occupied. Um, but it's one of these things where I think it's the like the immigrants lament almost like, are you happy where you are? Do you make a move home? Do you what is life? Where is your home? Where is your heart? And is it like home is where your heart is, or home is where your feet are, if that makes sense?
Yeah, like the thing is what you say about being an immigrant. I'm sure you went through it when you first moved to London a few years after. I certainly went through it here in Sweden. You do question that whole idea of like where is home, and you end up in that nether region where you're neither home there nor back in Ireland, like and you're kind of in between. And after racking my like, I didn't like it here for about 3 or 4 years. I kind of hated it here. I wanted to be back in Ireland, but now I kind of I I quite like it here. I still love Ireland and I love going back to Dublin, but I quite like it here. And what I think it forces you to do is like you need, and I think this happens to everybody, but I think maybe it happens to immigrants a little sooner. Is that you have to learn to be happy. I'm gonna say in your own skin, but that includes the location of where you're at. Like I remember being younger and thinking if I had a writer's block or something, I could go away to the country to a house and I could write, and everything would be grand if I could just get down to this like mythical place. And I did it a few times. You go down there, you don't write anything, you might write one or two. And it's a bit like that. You kind of have to learn just to be happy where you are and like let it happen. And a kind of I've been reading a lot of Buddhist like books in the last year or two, and it makes a lot of sense to me. And it's that idea of just impermanence and that everything's changing anyway. So trying to be joyful in the place you're at is key to it, really.
A lot of people have said that COVID has brought on a lot of that mindset. I know for just thinking as I asked you the question, what's the toughest thing that you've done in the past year? I had a nice 9 to 5 job. It was safe. It was boring, but it was safe. And I worked all throughout the pandemic and there was never any issues with it, but it was never going to set the world on fire.
Mm.
But I just said, that's enough. I can't do that anymore. I want to do a remote job where I can, if I want to, I can travel. If I want to, I can go wherever, I can do whatever. And it's like sometimes you just have to it's almost like you have to have that belief that, yes, this is what I want to do. And like, even at my age, my mother was like, is that really the right thing to be doing now,
Well,
love?
it's 100% the right thing to do, though, because like at the end of the day, if you look at yourself in the mirror, even if you fail miserably, at least you can look yourself in the mirror and say, I
Right.
tried my best and I did what I wanted to do. Like, and then you can go and do something safe then in that situation. But like the likelihood is you will completely succeed because you're driven to do it. And it's scary to do a big move like that or to move careers or whatever. But you got to do it. Like, you have to do it. There's no, and it's a weird one when you get to that point when you just know I have to do this. Like, it needs to be done, regardless of what anybody thinks or regardless of lack of security. Like, you know, it's the risk and reward thing. And like, I would imagine that it'll work out for you, you know, once you, like, you know, once you work hard. That's the thing. Once you're able to, if you, because, and you will work hard, and it'd be great to work hard doing it because you want to do it. You know, it's hard to work at something you don't want to do. Like,
Your music is the love of your life. You know, it's something that you've done. I can't remember a time where I didn't know of Richie Egan on the Irish music scene. And this is like, how many albums altogether have you released with Red Manifesto and Solo
uh,
now?
I don't know, probably around, like, this is number 6 for Jape anyway. And then with Rednecks, we probably did, I don't know, was it five or six as well, maybe? So about 12 records, maybe altogether, and bits and bobs in between as well. You know?
That's a lot of music. It's a fantastic discography to have.
Yeah, like, I'm kind of thinking to myself now, like, that I wish we, like, the Jape records tend to come every like 3 years or something like that. And I feel like that I let myself down by not working at a faster pace, you know. So, and now because I'm getting a bit older, I feel like I need to work faster. So I'm kind of working every day in the studio, already moving on to the next one, because time just seems like more like valuable or something now than it did, you know. So
One question I had actually in relation to the album and the tracks on the album is there's like what? There's one, two, three, four, five,
there's
six,
9, I think, on that one.
nine tracks. Like a lot of bands, I remember the first album I ever bought had 8 tracks on it. It was on a cassette and it had 4 tracks each side
Yeah,
with
lovely.
a very nice length as well.
Mm. Yeah,
Some bands tend to, it's like they're not able to do like a quality control or something. Now, I'm not saying there's not some great albums that are like very, very long,
yeah.
but you have to be able to, I think, get your listener and ensure that your listener is going to stick with the album for the duration of the album.
Mm.
And not this suits that perfectly.
I think, like, I have a couple of records that have 8 tracks on them, because I remember reading somewhere that Black Sabbath had 8 tracks on their album, and Leonard Cohen had a couple of albums with 8 tracks on it. So I was like, well, Leonard Cohen, if it's good, and Black Sabbath, it's good enough for them, then it could definitely be good enough for me. So I think 8, between, for me anyway, between 8 and 10 is kind of good, you know. Maybe push it to 12, but whenever you see a 15-song album or something, I'm kind of like, I don't know, with
Really?
skits, you know, skits between
Oh
the
yeah,
songs.
yeah, yeah. And they're
Like,
all like 1 minute and 30 seconds and
yeah,
just like
yeah,
two friends laughing in the bathroom or something.
yeah, yeah. So, apart from Outcast, they're the only ones. I allow them to do whatever they want because they're geniuses. They
The
have a long album.
album they are must actually stick on. Maybe I'll play some Outcast on the show
Yeah,
later.
please.
Um Endless Thread is coming out at the end of September. It's coming out on Faction Records. What have you lined up? Are you going on tour? What are you doing around this album?
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna do like a little small little tour the week it comes out, doing like a bookshop in Kinsale, doing Tower Records, and doing a cafe in Crumlin as well, actually, which is gonna be brilliant because uh I'm from Crumlin originally, and my dad still lives there, and there's a cool, nice little cafe close to where he lives. And I was just, when I was over, I was in there a couple of times, and then I was thinking to myself, oh man, I've never, like, you know, they really like music in there, so I was like, maybe I could do a gig in here. And I mailed them, and they were like, totally, that'd be amazing. So I'm going to do a little gig in there. And so, yeah, a little small week of that. And then doing a little tour at the end of October into the start of November, which includes a gig in London, actually, in the London Irish Centre, which I'm looking forward to a lot. I haven't been in London, even in London, in ages. So that'll be cool. We're playing Dublin 2 nights. We're doing Clonakilty, Limerick, Cork, and Galway as well. So small enough tour, you know. But yeah, just try and get it out into people's faces. And you know, I really want. This is why I'm doing these little gigs. Is I just really want to meet people again at gigs and like talk to people and, like, you know, just share. Because I did a load of gigs after COVID where there was there was like kind of a bit of money involved in terms of the Irish government giving these venues money and then they could put on gigs. So I did a load and I kind of hated it. I was like, I really didn't like it at all. I was in a very weird place mentally and had very bad anxiety at the time and I wasn't digging it. And I was almost going to knock it on the head altogether. And it was only the last of those gigs was this thing called Hibernical that's run by Una Malloy from Turning Pirate, and she asked me to do it, and I went there and I saw Wallace Bird playing, and it was like, oh my god, I've been missing. I've missed, and I also got to play with Andy Irvine and Lisa Hannigan that weekend, which was like bucket list stuff as well. But it just reaffirmed. It was like literally like a last minute goal at like 97 minutes or something, where I was basically about to go, I'm never going to play live again, and I just had it all completely reborn in me thanks to that one weekend. And I that's why I'm doing this weird stuff at the gig, where I'm going to have like these quizzes at the gig, because I miss the sort of like chaotic nature of communicating with people. It had turned into a little bit of like go up on stage, do a song, people applaud, do the next song, people, and it was not really giving me anything, and I doubt it was giving the audience much as well. I don't know what was going on basically, but it was a kind of a weird vibe. And then I've done one gig in the format that I'm going to do these next gigs, which was in Imma, and it was amazing. It was really cool. So it's like breaking down, just getting the audience involved, basically having a laugh and enjoying play together, like making something on the night. So I've been trying to come up with quiz questions for these quizzes because I can't do the same ones every night. So it's going to be great. I'm telling you now. If anybody who's listening has any good ungoogleable quiz questions, they might DM me them so I can get them on the go for these gigs.
Richie, it has been lovely to catch up with you. And like that, I always say that one of the things I love about my radio show here on 2XM, I'm very glad to have this platform here, but it's always great to catch up with people that I haven't seen in ages. And when we're all in different parts of the world now, it's fantastic. We have the internet and we can still
great,
meet up and keep in touch and whatever. And like the London here is here, and it's kind of what I would try to be is a voice for Irish people outside Ireland. You're always welcome, and
thanks. You do a great job. So thanks very much for having me. I really appreciate it.
No worries at all. Listen, look after yourself. Best of luck with the album.
Take care.